stop for a second and look at your life like an outsider would, not emotionally, just observe it, the way you wake up, the way you spend your time, the way your days repeat with small variations that change nothing. Now here's the uncomfortable question. Did you design this life, or did you slowly fall into it without noticing? Because most people don't choose their life. They inherit it. They inherit routines, expectations, limits, and then they spend years defending them as if they were personal decisions. That's how the trap works, not through force, but through familiarity. You repeat something long enough, it starts to feel like identity. You follow a path long enough, it starts to feel like destiny. And by the time you question it, you're already deep inside it. This is why most people never escape. Not because they lack ambition, but because they never see what's controlling them in the first place. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something brutal about human behavior. People don't need chains to be controlled. Give them structure, give them comfort, give them a sense of normal, and they will stay exactly where they are. No resistance, no rebellion, just quiet obedience disguised as choice. And once that structure becomes invisible, it becomes almost impossible to break. That's what you're up against. Not a visible enemy, not a clear barrier, but a system that feels natural while it limits you. In this video, you're not going to hear motivational noise. You're not going to be told to believe in yourself or stay positive. That doesn't change anything. What you're about to hear is different. These are 7 ruthless lessons built on one idea. If you don't see the system, you will always serve it. And the moment you do see it, you have a decision to make. Stay comfortable and keep repeating the same life. Or start breaking patterns that were never designed for your growth. Most people will choose comfort. A few will choose awareness. Almost none will choose action. So the only real question is, which one are you? Before we move forward, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I see the system. Number 1, average life is a system, not an accident. What most people call normal life is not something that randomly happens. It is constructed, it is reinforced, and most importantly, it is maintained with precision. Every day you follow a pattern that feels harmless on the surface, but over time it locks your position in place. You wake up at a certain time, think in a certain way, react in predictable patterns, and move through environments that quietly confirm who you're supposed to be. None of this feels forced. That's why it works so well. The system does not need to control you aggressively when it can guide you subtly. Think about how repetition shapes perception. The more you do something, the less you question it. What once felt like a decision slowly turns into automatic behavior. You stop analyzing your direction because familiarity creates a false sense of certainty. You begin to believe that where you are is simply where you belong. That belief is the core of the system, because once you accept your position as natural, you stop trying to change it. The average life survives through loops, not dramatic failures, not sudden collapses, but small, consistent cycles that keep you exactly where you are. You consume instead of creating. You react instead of planning. You wait instead of positioning. These are not random habits. They are stabilizing mechanisms. They prevent movement. They reduce risk. They keep everything predictable. And predictability is the foundation of control. Here's where it becomes dangerous. The system convinces you that you are choosing this life. It gives you just enough freedom to feel independent while quietly limiting the range of your decisions. You can choose what to watch, what to eat, what to say, but rarely do you question the structure itself. You are allowed to move inside the box, but not encouraged to step outside it. And over time, you stop seeing the box altogether. Niccolò Machiavelli observed that people are easier to guide when they believe they are acting on their own will. This is exactly how the average life sustains itself. It does not need to restrict you openly. It only needs to shape your habits quietly. Once your habits are aligned with the system, your outcomes become predictable. And once your outcomes are predictable, your position becomes permanent. But here is the shift. The moment you recognize that your life is operating inside a system, everything changes. You stop reacting emotionally to results and start analyzing the structure behind them. You begin to see patterns instead of isolated events. You notice how certain actions lead to the same outcomes repeatedly. And once you see those patterns, you gain something most people never develop: awareness of control points. Control points are where change actually happens, not through motivation, not through temporary effort, but through altering the patterns that define your behavior. If the system is built on repetition, then breaking repetition is the first act of resistance. It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel unnatural, because you are stepping outside what has been reinforced for years. But that discomfort is not a warning. It is a signal that you are no longer operating on autopilot. Most people will hear this and do nothing. They will return to the same loops, the same patterns, the same predictable outcomes, because recognizing the system is one thing, acting against it is another. And that is where separation begins. Drop this affirmation in the comments: I break patterns. Number 2, invisible agreements control your behavior. There are rules shaping your life that were never formally introduced to you. No one wrote them down. No one explained them step by step. And yet you follow them every single day without hesitation. These are invisible agreements. They exist in the background of your thinking, quietly guiding what you believe is acceptable, possible, or out of reach. You don't question them because they don't feel like rules. They feel like common sense. From an early stage, you absorb signals about what is considered realistic. You hear what is too much, what is too risky, what is not for someone like you. These ideas are repeated through conversations, environments, and reactions from others. Over time, they become internal boundaries. You begin to filter your own actions before anyone else needs to stop you. That is the power of these agreements. They remove the need for external control because you enforce the limits yourself. Look at how quickly people adjust their behavior to fit expectations. They lower their ambition to avoid standing out. They avoid taking bold steps to prevent criticism. They shrink their ideas to match what others consider reasonable. None of this is required. There is no law forcing it. But the pressure is still real because it is social. And social pressure is one of the strongest forces shaping human behavior. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that groups maintain stability by discouraging deviation. Not through direct confrontation, but through subtle resistance. When someone steps outside the norm, they are questioned, doubted, or quietly pushed back into alignment. This is not always intentional. Most people are not aware they are doing it. They are simply protecting what feels familiar to them. The danger is not that these agreements exist. The danger is that you accept them without awareness. You begin to operate inside a mental boundary that was never designed by you. You start measuring your potential based on standards that were inherited, not chosen. And once that happens, your behavior becomes predictable again. You don't take certain actions, not because you can't, but because you believe you shouldn't. Here's where the shift begins. The moment you start identifying these invisible agreements, they lose some of their power. You begin to notice when a thought is not truly yours, but something you absorbed. You catch yourself hesitating, not because of real limitation, but because of perceived judgment. That awareness creates a gap, and inside that gap, you have a choice. Breaking these agreements will not feel comfortable. It will feel like you are stepping outside what is allowed. You may experience resistance, both internally and externally. People may question your decisions. They may try to pull you back into what they understand. But that reaction is not a sign you are wrong. It is a sign you are no longer operating inside the same boundaries. The moment you stop accepting unspoken limits, you become difficult to predict. And unpredictability shifts dynamics. You are no longer reacting based on expectation, you are acting based on awareness. That is where control begins to return to you. Most people will never challenge these agreements. They will live inside them, defend them, and pass them on without ever realizing it. But the few who question them, the few who step beyond them, they operate on a completely different level, not because they are more talented, but because they are no longer restricted by rules they never agreed to. Number 3. Your time is being quietly stolen. You think you are wasting time. That's the illusion. The truth is far more precise. Your time is being taken from you in small, controlled amounts, spread across your day so it never feels significant. Minutes disappear here, hours dissolve there, and by the end of the day you feel busy. But nothing has actually moved forward. This is not random. It is structured. Because if your attention is constantly occupied, you never step back to question where your life is going. Look at how your day is divided, not by intention, but by interruption, notifications, scrolling, passive consumption, endless streams of content designed to keep you engaged, but not progressing. You are pulled from one thing to another, never staying long enough to build anything meaningful. It feels harmless because each moment is small, but when those moments combine, they form a pattern, and that pattern determines your direction. The system does not need to stop you from growing. It only needs to keep you distracted long enough that growth never becomes your priority. This is why most people are always about to start. They plan, they think, they imagine, but they never execute with consistency, because execution requires focus, and focus is constantly being fragmented. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that controlling attention is one of the most effective forms of influence. When your focus is scattered, your decisions become reactive. You respond to what appears in front of you instead of directing your own actions. And when you live in reaction mode, you are no longer leading your life. You are following whatever captures your attention next. Here's the part most people ignore. Time itself is not the problem. Everyone has the same number of hours. The difference is how those hours are protected. If your time is open to constant interruption, it will be filled by external demands. If your attention is unguarded, it will be claimed by whatever is most stimulating, not what is most important. You might tell yourself you need rest, or that you deserve to relax. And sometimes that's true, but there is a difference between intentional recovery and unconscious consumption. One restores you, the other drains you while pretending to entertain you. And the more you rely on distraction, the harder it becomes to sit with focus. Your mind adapts to stimulation, and anything that requires effort starts to feel uncomfortable. This is how stagnation becomes normal, not through failure, but through slow disengagement from meaningful action. You stop building because it feels harder than consuming. You stop thinking deeply because quick content replaces real analysis. And without realizing it, your direction is being shaped by whatever holds your attention the longest. The shift begins when you treat your time as something that must be defended, not managed casually, but protected with intention. You start deciding where your attention goes instead of letting it be pulled. You reduce unnecessary inputs. You create space for focused work. And most importantly, you become aware of when your time is being taken without giving you anything in return. This will feel uncomfortable at first. Silence replaces noise. Focus replaces stimulation. But inside that discomfort is control. Because when you take back your attention, you take back your direction. And once you control your direction, you stop drifting inside a system that benefits from your distraction. Most people will never reach this point. They will continue trading their time for momentary engagement, never realizing what they are losing. But the few who recognize it and act on it, they move differently, not faster, not louder, but with intention. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I control time. Number 4. Your environment is designing you. You believe your decisions come from within. You believe your mindset is self-created. But take a closer look at your surroundings, and a different pattern starts to appear. The people you interact with, the conversations you hear, the standards you're exposed to every day. All of these are shaping how you think without asking for permission. Your environment is not neutral, it is active. It is constantly influencing what you consider normal, acceptable, and possible. You don't need someone to control you directly. All they need to do is surround you with a certain level of thinking, and over time, you will adjust to it. If everyone around you operates within safe limits, those limits begin to feel natural. If no one challenges ideas or pushes boundaries, then staying where you are starts to feel reasonable. You adapt quietly, not because you chose to, but because humans are wired to align with what they see repeatedly. Pay attention to how standards are set, not through rules, but through exposure. When you are surrounded by people who settle, you begin to lower your expectations without realizing it. When ambition is rare in your circle, it starts to feel unnecessary. When growth is not visible, stagnation becomes acceptable. This is how environments shape identity. Not by forcing you, but by normalizing a certain level of behavior until you stop questioning it. Niccolò Machiavelli recognized that proximity is one of the strongest forms of influence. The closer you are to something, the more it affects you. Not just in action, but in perception. You start seeing the world through the same lens as the people around you. You adopt their fears, their limits, their assumptions, and over time, it becomes difficult to separate what is truly yours from what you absorbed. Here's the part most people avoid. Even supportive people can limit you, not intentionally, but through their own boundaries. They may care about you, encourage you, and still operate within a mindset that keeps everything safe and predictable. And if you stay too close to that influence, you begin to mirror it. You don't realize it's happening because it feels like connection, but in reality, it's alignment. The shift begins when you start evaluating your environment with honesty instead of emotion. You ask yourself uncomfortable questions. Are the people around you expanding your thinking or reinforcing your current position? Are your conversations challenging you or repeating the same ideas? Are you being exposed to growth or surrounded by stability that leads nowhere? This is not about cutting people off impulsively. It's about understanding influence. It's about recognizing that access to your time and attention is powerful. The more someone is present in your environment, the more they shape your behavior. And if that influence is limiting, it will quietly define your ceiling. When you take control of your environment, everything begins to shift. You become more intentional about who you listen to, what you engage with, and where you place yourself. You seek out perspectives that challenge you instead of comfort you. You create distance from patterns that keep you static. And slowly, your thinking begins to expand beyond what once felt normal. This process is not easy. It may feel isolating at times. Because when you step outside familiar influence, you lose the comfort of alignment. But what you gain is far more valuable. You gain clarity, you gain independence in thought, and most importantly, you gain the ability to define your own standard instead of inheriting one. Most people never do this. They stay inside environments that shape them into predictable versions of themselves. But the few who take control of their surroundings, they stop being designed by the world around them and start designing themselves. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose influence. Number 5. Comfort is a controlled cage. Comfort feels harmless. It feels earned. It feels like something you should protect. But look closer and you'll see something different. Comfort is not just a state, it is a position, and that position is designed to keep you still. When everything around you feels easy, familiar, and predictable, you stop pushing. You stop testing limits. You stop expanding. Not because you decided to, but because nothing is forcing you to move. This is where most people get trapped without realizing it. They confuse stability with progress. They believe that because nothing is going wrong, everything must be right. But in a competitive world, standing still is not neutral. It is decline. Because while you remain comfortable, others are adapting, learning, and positioning themselves ahead of you, and the gap grows quietly. Comfort removes urgency. It dulls your awareness. When there is no pressure, there is no reason to question your direction. You follow the same routines, repeat the same behaviors, and convince yourself that this is enough. But enough is not a fixed point. It shifts constantly, and if you are not adjusting with it, you are falling behind without noticing. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that ease can weaken position faster than struggle. When people become too comfortable, they lower their guard. They stop preparing. They assume things will continue as they are, and that assumption makes them vulnerable, not immediately, but over time. Because the world does not reward those who remain the same. It rewards those who evolve. Here's the deeper problem. The longer you stay in comfort, the more resistance you feel toward anything that challenges it. Growth begins to feel uncomfortable, even threatening. You avoid situations that require effort. You delay actions that demand discipline. You choose what feels good now over what builds strength later. And slowly, your capacity to handle difficulty starts to shrink. This is how stagnation becomes permanent, not through failure, but through avoidance. You stop stepping into discomfort, so you stop developing the ability to handle it. And without that ability, even small challenges start to feel overwhelming. You become dependent on ease. And dependence is a form of control. The shift begins when you stop seeing comfort as something to protect and start seeing it as something to question. You begin to ask yourself where you are too settled, too relaxed, too unchallenged. You identify areas where you've been operating on autopilot, and instead of maintaining that state, you deliberately introduce friction. This doesn't mean creating chaos. It means choosing difficulty with purpose. You take on tasks that stretch your ability. You step into situations that require focus and effort. You remove the safety of constant ease and replace it with controlled challenge. And through that process, your capacity begins to expand again. At first, this will feel unnatural. Your mind will resist it. It will try to pull you back into what feels comfortable. But that resistance is not a signal to stop. It is proof that you are stepping outside the cage, because the cage was never locked. It was maintained by your preference for comfort. Most people will never leave it. They will protect their ease, defend their routines, and stay exactly where they are. But the few who challenge it, the few who choose discomfort strategically, they build something others don't. They build resilience, adaptability, and control over their own direction. And once you develop that, comfort no longer controls you. You control when to enter it and when to leave it. Number 6. Your identity is not yours. The most powerful control system you live inside is not external, it is internal. It is the version of yourself you believe to be fixed. The way you describe your personality, your limits, your strengths, your weaknesses. You say, "This is just who I am." But that statement is rarely true. What you call identity is often a collection of patterns you absorbed, repeated, and accepted over time. You were shaped long before you started questioning anything. Through environment, through expectations, through reactions from others. Every time you were rewarded for certain behavior, it reinforced a trait. Every time you were criticized, it pushed you away from another. Slowly, without realizing it, you built a self-image. Not by design, but by accumulation. And once that image formed, you started protecting it. This is where the limitation becomes permanent, because you don't act based on what is possible. You act based on what fits your identity. You filter decisions through it. You reject actions that feel not like you. You avoid paths that challenge how you see yourself. And even when opportunity appears, you hesitate if it doesn't align with your internal definition. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that people are consistent not because they choose to be, but because they are attached to their own image. Once someone believes they are a certain type of person, they will behave in ways that confirm it, even if it limits them. That is why identity is one of the strongest forms of control. It does not need to be enforced. It is maintained from within. Think about how often people say they want change, but continue acting the same way. They try new habits, new routines, new strategies, but nothing sticks. Not because the methods are wrong, but because their identity remains unchanged. They are trying to build a different life while still operating as the same person, and that conflict always pulls them back. Here is the shift. Real change does not begin with action, it begins with separation. You have to detach from the identity you've been operating under. You have to question it, challenge it, and recognize that it was never fixed. It was formed. And anything that is formed can be replaced. This is not comfortable. Because identity feels personal. It feels like you are removing something real. But what you are actually removing is a limitation that has been repeated long enough to feel permanent. Once you see that, you gain the ability to redefine yourself intentionally. Instead of asking, "What do I usually do?" you start asking, "What is required?" Instead of acting based on familiarity, you act based on direction. You stop protecting your current identity and start building one that aligns with where you want to go. And that shift changes everything, because your actions are no longer restricted by who you were. This does not happen instantly. There will be resistance. Old patterns will try to pull you back. Your mind will look for consistency. But the more you act outside your previous identity, the weaker it becomes, and over time, a new version replaces it. Not through words, but through repeated behavior aligned with a different standard. Most people never reach this point. They stay loyal to an identity that limits them. They protect it, defend it, and live inside it without question. But the few who are willing to let it go, they gain something rare. They gain flexibility. They gain control over who they become. And once you understand that your identity is not fixed, you are no longer trapped by it. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I redefine myself. Number 7. The system rewards obedience, not potential. There is a belief that effort and talent are enough to rise above the average, that if you work hard, stay consistent and do the right things, you will naturally move ahead. But that belief ignores something critical. The system you are operating inside was not designed to reward independence. It was designed to reward stability. And stability depends on predictability, not potential. From the outside, it looks like progress is available to anyone. But look closer, and you'll notice a pattern. The people who are most easily accepted are the ones who follow established paths. They meet expectations. They behave in ways that are understood. They do not disrupt the structure, and because of that, they are allowed to move forward within it. Not beyond it, but within it. This is where most people get misled. They confuse movement with advancement. They believe they are progressing, but they're only moving along a predefined route. They are rewarded for fitting in, not for breaking out. And over time, that reward system conditions them to stay aligned with what is expected. Niccolò Machiavelli observed that systems maintain control by encouraging behavior that supports their structure. When people act in predictable ways, they are easier to manage. When they seek approval, they become easier to guide. And when they depend on validation, they lose the ability to act independently. Think about how often approval influences decisions. People adjust their behavior to be accepted. They avoid actions that might lead to rejection. They shape their choices based on how others will respond. And without realizing it, they begin to prioritize acceptance over direction. This is where control becomes internal, because you are no longer acting based on what is effective. You are acting based on what is approved. The problem is not that approval exists. The problem is relying on it as a signal for what to do next, because the system will always favor what maintains order. It will rarely encourage actions that challenge it. So, if you depend on validation, you will stay within the boundaries that have already been set. Here is where the shift happens. You stop looking for permission. You stop measuring your actions based on how they are received. Instead, you begin evaluating them based on whether they move you forward. That changes your decision-making completely. You become less predictable. You take actions that others hesitate to take. And you stop aligning your behavior with what is comfortable for everyone else. This does not mean acting recklessly. It means acting independently. It means understanding that approval is often a reflection of conformity, not effectiveness. And once you see that clearly, you stop chasing it. There will be resistance. When you step outside expected behavior, people will question you. They may doubt your decisions. They may try to pull you back into alignment, not because they are against you, but because you are no longer predictable. And unpredictability creates discomfort in structured environments. But that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you are no longer operating under the same rules. You are no longer waiting to be guided. You are making decisions based on direction, not approval. Most people will never reach this point. They will continue to seek validation, follow established paths, and remain inside the system that rewards their obedience. But the few who break away from that pattern, the few who act without needing approval, they move differently. They are not limited by the same expectations. And once you stop seeking permission, you stop being controlled by those who give it. Drop this affirmation in the comments: I need no approval. Now you see it clearly, not as an idea, not as motivation, but as a structure that has been shaping your life without asking for permission. The patterns, the limits, the distractions, the identity, the environment, all of it working together to keep you in a position that feels normal but was never truly chosen. Most people will hear this, feel a moment of clarity, and then return to their routine as if nothing happened. Because awareness creates discomfort, and comfort always tries to pull you back. That is how the system survives, not through force but through repetition. Niccolò Machiavelli never focused on fairness. He focused on advantage. And advantage does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who sees what others ignore and acts on it without hesitation. That is the difference. Not knowledge alone, but execution. Because once you see the structure, you are no longer allowed to pretend you don't understand it. At this point, you have two options. You can go back to what is familiar, stay inside the same loops, and continue living a life that was shaped for you. Or you can start cutting away what limits you, change how you spend your time, change who you allow around you, change the identity you've been protecting, and most importantly, stop waiting for approval from a system that benefits from your obedience. If this shifted your perspective even slightly, don't just watch and move on. Like the video, share it with someone who is still stuck inside the same patterns, and subscribe to the channel if you want more content that exposes how power actually works beneath the surface. Because this is not about motivation, this is about seeing clearly and acting with intention. Most people will stay where they are, a few will start questioning, and a very small number will act. The only thing left to decide is which one you are.